Facilities that make this program possible are provided by the City of Highland Park. Programs are produced independently by members of the community. The City of Highland Park is not affiliated with the following program or the producers of public access programming and is not responsible for the content. The following program does not reflect the opinions of the City of Highland Park.
And welcome to Cahnmann's Current Events Roundtable. Today we have a show that we've never done before, and I am very proud to have this show on television for our viewers to see. It's called Behind Bars and the Challenges of Reentry. And my guests today are Rabbi Binyomin Scheiman, Director of the HINDA Institute, and is a prison chaplain of the different places like Cook County Jail, Illinois Department of Corrections, Federal Bureau of Prisons, Illinois State Police, and his client of HINDA Institute, Sam Horowitz. I want to thank you both for coming on the show. I really appreciate it. Welcome, Rabbi, and welcome, Sam. I am very happy to have both of you here today, and I want to read a little bit to my viewers of what we're going to be talking about, and I think this is really important. People that were incarcerated face problems that can be overwhelming when they try to settle into a normal life after their release from prison. They may seek jobs, credit, and housing they may want in all ways to live as if the convictions have never occurred. But once outside prison, they find their futures constricted by their past official records, tell prospective employers, creditors, landlords of their criminal backgrounds, and the former prisoners, as a result, may be refused the essentials of a normal life. And that is exactly what has happened to you, Sam. I'm going to address Sam for a few minutes, and then I will talk to you, Rabbi. Sam, you're a client of HINDA Institute, and the Rabbi will tell a little bit about HINDA Institute. And we had some time to chat today. We all had lunch together, and I have found you a really neat guy. And I mean, you're also an actor, a stuntman, and a professional boxer as well. But maybe tell a little bit about yourself and what happened. You were released from prison for about 8 years. And it wasn't really, I mean, it's not what people even do today, and they get into prison. But the problem that I see is what has happened afterwards, that you haven't been able, you were talking about, renting, getting jobs, it wasn't that easy. And can you tell a little bit about what your experience was?
Well, sure. Thank you for having me. And I guess what I should say is it's not so much where I am now because, now I do have those things. But when I was originally released from prison and it was time for me to re-enter society and try to live a normal life and be a upstanding citizen and get a job and do all the things that normal people do in society, it was a challenge because you get judged. We're a judgmental society in general, and especially if you have a X on your back, so to speak, with a conviction, it's just very difficult to get any type of employment. It was hard for me, absolutely, initially when I, tried to get a job, it was hard. It was hard to get a job. It was mostly through friends and friends of friends that I was able to eventually get employment, because it's very difficult.
So I wonder what the prison system is doing for people that have this challenge. I mean, they went through what happened to them, and they served their sentence. They did everything they were supposed to do, and they were rehabilitated. And once they come out, they suffer again. And that's something that you, Rabbi, are very well acquainted with. And I know you have a role in this, and maybe tell a little bit about yourself, how you got into this, and a little bit about HINDA Institute that you're the director of.
Okay, well, number one, thank you for having me today. It's a pleasure to be here. And I started ministering to prisons back in 1980. It was, someone called from New York and just said, can you visit a business associate of mine? His son is in prison. And I had never been to prison before in my life. I went in the first time, and something in my soul clicked. And something inside of me said, I need to do this. And I made up at that time that a goal that any Jewish person, man or woman, child, in the state of Illinois that is in this terrible prison situation, I want to be there for them. And I was not at that time in 1980 visiting any prisons. Now I visit over 30 prisons a month. Me and my team, I've hired some other rabbis now. And I just live for this. And HINDA Institute is named after my dear wife, who 2.5 years ago succumbed to a battle with breast cancer. And previously, my organization was called the Jewish Prisoners Assistance Foundation. But to honor my wife and her legacy, and she was part of my role, we brought people into our homes, and she treated people in a non-judgmental way. She was not part of the judgmental society. Men and women would come on a Friday night to have chicken soup and gefilte fish and got smiled at and treated like a human. So in honor of her, HINDA, which is an acronym for Helping Individuals Ascend, I've expanded the work I'm doing. I hired staff. I have a rabbi living in Carbondale who works with the students at Southern Illinois, and he also visits about 15 prisons that are about a 100-mile radius from where he lives. I have another rabbi and his wife who work with the families, because the statistics show that for every man in prison, there's another 8 to 10 people, spouses, siblings, wives, children, that are affected by the incarceration. So we're in touch with those families the entire time. And when you ask what is done inside the prisons to help someone get released, I was by a hearing by a commission the governor set up to reduce the prison population by 25% in 10 years. And person after person testified how very little is done to help a man get out. A man these days lives with $10 in his pocket and is sent with a bus ticket and says, restart your life.
Oh my God. What do they do with families? I mean, families depend on, the person that was incarcerated could have been, he probably was the breadwinner of the family, or she, and they have to go to prison. How do these families live? You were in prison. Did you talk to any of the inmates and how they, how their families were surviving and what income?
Well, it's different for everybody. I was a young man when this happened to me, but there's those situations absolutely that happen, and it puts the family in disarray. There were older inmates that were the breadwinners of their families, and now they go away, and that's all there is to it. There's nothing. That's.
What about you were a young man at that time, and your parents, how did they handle it? How was it for them? And I know you told me you had 2 sisters. How was it for them knowing that their brother or their son was in prison?
Well, it's difficult. Just like the rabbi said, it affects it affects everybody, not just the mistakes that I made that affected my own life, but the things that affected my family, and maybe the possible shame that they felt, or the guilt, and the judgment that they could have felt, and having me away. There's a lot of things that go into it. That's a part of the role that that the rabbi played in my life, is that he was a lifeline to me and to my family. He talked to my mother, he talked to my father. He came to visit me every month for the entire time I spent away, and made sure that I was connected, and that was such an integral part in helping me, spiritually, as well as my family.
No, that's good. Thank you for doing that, Rabbi. That was wonderful.
Yes, if I may interject that we have a staff member dealing directly with the families, and like Sam said, there is a deep shame. The family doesn't even feel the courage to go to the Jewish organizations, whether it's the Federation or the ARC, in the Jewish community, because they feel so shamed. They feel everybody's looking at them. Sadly, some people are even ostracized from their own congregations. And in school, the other kids look at the children and say, "Oh, we know what your father or what your mother did." So we're there to stand with them and give them the courage, hold them by the hand, and help them get through this tough time. And one more issue is husbands and wives. There's a lot of stress in the marriage, and many times it ends up in a divorce. And certainly they need marriage counseling in a very, very strong way after release.
What about the children of these, individuals? The children, how do they feel? Like they go to school, and there's a stigma at school on them too. Besides their parents, they suffer as well.
Yes, the children, and there is a statistic that children of inmates, if they're not treated right, can themselves become inmates. So really a lot of effort has to be put in for the children. We have one family where the father went away for a drug offense. The mother herself was not found fit by the DCFS to be a mother, and the children were actually taken and put in foster homes. Right now they ended up in decent families. The Jewish Children's Bureau interceded. The mother visits with them. They actually go, we got them enrolled in camps. We help with the Jewish Family Service, plus different camps we're involved with, have those children now in camp, and we work very strongly with those children to make sure now the father is out, and we're trying to get them, custody back so they could be with their parents again. But it was a very rough time.
Also, we had talked a little earlier about anti-Semitism in the prisons. Can you talk a little bit about that? Especially, people, there are a lot of, my reading has been that there's been a lot of bullying and neo-Nazi parties starting. Is there like a government inside their own in a prison? It's it's not all the guards and everything. They can't watch everything that's going on.
I think as far as what I can relate to, I can't talk about what's going on in prisons across the country. Only what I read about. In Illinois, in this state, there's definitely a level of anti-Semitism amongst certain staff in different, areas of Illinois, and some inmates. Quite frankly, Jews in prison are, without a doubt, a significant minority, and so it's more, I think, sometimes possibly ignorance, just with not knowing any Jewish people, you could come under fire and whatnot. I had certain incidents, during my time with just, comments and whatnot, that I had to deal with. And then with some staff, I had an incident as well, And yeah, it exists, without a doubt.
What's being done for it when you go? Do you notice any of that when you go into the prisons, Rabbi?
I'll tell you what I see from my perspective, visiting all the prisons, federal, state, and county. What I see is that there is a level of anti-Semitism, just like there is on the street, there is in the prison. And I have found that it can be overcome many times just by the individual. Sam, I'm going to talk about a man Sam actually knows. He actually did some time with. He was at the Dixon Correctional Center, and this man held himself in such a level of morality and ethical behavior, and what we call a mensch. And he ended up being respected by every Jew, by every non-Jew, by every staff member, by every member of the administration, and because they saw within him he's real, he's authentic, he really means what he's doing, and it was almost like a signal went on the prison, stay away from him, he really means it, don't mess with him. And he himself was able, even though it was in that atmosphere, he was able to garner respect from everybody. There are some other individuals which almost wear a sign that says, kick me, and sort of bring things, not that that justifies anything, but some people start reacting to it, and it escalates the situation sometimes. Sometimes I need to intercede and speak to the wardens and speak to the chaplains if something is getting out of hand with staff, and we do that. And sometimes outside organizations have to come in, sometimes even legal organizations like the ACLU or different legal groups need to come in and say, please stop this anti-Semitism.
What do you see that, what do you see needs to be done to the prison system? What would you like to see change, both of you, in the system? You know, as far as, you know, how they treat the prisoners, because I know in Finland and Scandinavian countries, the prisoner does not go into a jail cell. Each prisoner has their own room. It's almost like a small dorm room with a bed and a bathroom, and you know, and then they get classes. They get classes in different subjects, so that when they come out, they're not held as they're prisoners, but they're there to be they're not there to be punished. They're there to learn and to learn. So when they get outside, they learn to be a person that you can count on.
Well, I would say a number of points. A, before the people go to prison, they're Cook County Jail. I believe, and they've started to do this already, that as many people as possible that have not been convicted should stay home on bond, or they should not be put in the jail if they don't need to be. And that's many of the people, because that a day or two or a month in the jail could really ruin a person's life, especially if at trial it turns out they don't have to go to prison. And so more and more people in the counties should be able to stay home. They should stay out on bond. It's a much healthier situation. Once they're in prison, I think that they should be treated more humanely. It should not be an idea of just punishment, and people are treated really, really poorly in prison, and there should be alternatives to prison. There should be restitution for property crimes. People should be able to stay home. There should be alternative sentences. There should be ways how, the first thing should be, how can we keep as many people home as possible on different alternatives to imprisonment? That should be the last resort, not the first resort. And we need to really cut the prison population. There's mass incarceration, and it's ruining families and ruining children's lives, and it's ruining society.
Right. Especially for drug offenses. I mean, if it was a murder offense or rape or, children, pedophilia, I mean, that is a different story. But when offenses of drug offenses, I mean, that you're right. That should be, they should be able to do community service. In fact, in our town, in Highwood, we had, at our library, we had we had a lawyer that did community service in our library. And it was wonderful because we can't afford to pay a lawyer for our services, and he was able to give us our needs as far as lawyering, and we got a lot of our needs met. And this happened a couple of years ago, and I thought, this is really, a good thing. He's assigned to our library, and at the same time, we are, we're getting our needs met as well in the library. I mean, this is things that people can do. I know people that have had some problems and were put, in situations in hospital in the burn unit, and they learn by seeing what could happen, if you mess around with any kind of fire or anything like that, and you work in a burn unit. And I think you come out with a much better sense of self and, what's right and what's wrong. And
I think the rabbi makes a lot of good points with what he just said. I pretty much agree with everything he said. On the same token, there's people that are criminals, commit crimes. I committed a crime. I went to jail, because I wasn't following the law. I wasn't innocent. I was a troubled kid, and I got into trouble, and it ended me up in jail. So I don't think necessarily the right, we talk about Finland, we talk about these other, they don't have the same type of problems that we have here either, and I think the main thing is, the rabbi talks about common respect, humanity, how people treat each other. That's a big thing, but as far as, I didn't go to jail to get coddled and it wasn't a reward, so sometimes it is punishment. There are a lot of bad people as well. There's good people that go to jail, there's people that make mistakes and that can learn from it. And there's also people that don't need to be in society. So it's not just necessarily about, hey, let's...
so you're saying some people
I'm saying that there's a level of respect and humanity that definitely needs to be addressed, with how people are treated in general, by the staff and vice versa. But it's not just about, hey, let's give everybody a bunch of privilege, because it is jail, and that it's needed for some people. But just like the rabbi said, it's not needed for a lot of people too.
Right.
A lot of people don't need that, and some people do.
But there could be punishment, and there can be how to make that person, not just when they come out, they have to have something to be able to.
Well, that's a whole, that's another story. That's reentry.
Right.
I mean, that's
reentry. They need something. You can't just, they serve their jail time. Okay, out you go.
Right.
There has to be something, maybe some courses in the jail, college courses, people finishing their high school degrees, whatever they need. It needs to be so that when they come out, they can live a good life.
Yeah.
A respected
Absolutely.
life. That's, I think, what we're talking about as
May
well.
I interject 2 points?
Yes, you may.
One is the idea of humanity in the prison. I heard yesterday a wife of a man in a prison got up before the commission, and this was her last word. She challenges everybody in the room to go home, sit down with their family, and put a timer on the table that goes from 3 to 8 minutes. Finish eating your entire meal and that time frame and leave the table. And whatever you ate, you ate. Due to overcrowding, that is how much time a prisoner in Illinois gets to eat. That is not humane.
No.
That's just a simple example of where there's no humanity. And that's even a hardened criminal. The man still should be able to eat a meal. And the second thing is whoever's listening or sees the show should know that society needs to forgive someone who served their time. When they come home, they have a right to continue their life. And like Sam opened up with, there's a lot of judgmental people, corporations, people that hire, and just because someone has a record, they don't look at the person for who they are right now and just discriminately say no, no, no. And this has to stop.
Does a record get expunged or not? Not all records get expunged.
Records don't get expunged unless you're able to get a lawyer and work on it. It doesn't automatically get expunged.
But even with a lawyer, Does it always? It doesn't
Not
always.
not all cases.
Not all cases get expunged, because a lot of people feel that once you get out of prison, you know, everything's fine, but it isn't fine, because if it doesn't get expunged and you go to and you try to get a job, you know, you get refused, and you had that problem, right?
Yeah, yeah. Initially, I did. I remember being really upbeat, and I was ready to, you know, start a new chapter in my life. And I want, you know, at the time, I wanted to be a personal trainer because I was heavily involved in fitness, and I thought that's the route I wanted to take with my life. And I remember talking to a manager at a gym, you know, at a bigger corporate gym in the Chicagoland area, and I remember talking to him, and he, you know, he was sold on me and my talents and my abilities and what I could do. And he said, "Yeah, you're hired, man. We're going to give you a shot." And he gave me the application to fill out, and I was so, you know, I had been conditioned before I was released to, hey, listen, it's always better to be honest now. Just write down, you know, yes, you've been convicted of a crime, and, you know, I didn't have any crimes against children or anything, you know,
Right.
like that. Yeah, so I said okay, and I said yes, and immediately I could just visibly see the expression on his face change when he took the application. It went from hiring me to, he said, "You know what, I'm sorry, but we just, you know, corporate's not going to take somebody with a record, and we can't do anything." And, you know, I remember feeling just drained. I felt hopeless at that point in my life. I just felt that, what am I supposed to do now? Mm-hmm. Because I just, you know, I just served my time, and now I'm here, and I'm trying to start a new life, and I can't even get a job as a personal trainer.
And you were rehabilitated.
Well,
As far as
I was on my way to
Right.
becoming rehabilitated. At the time, I was ready to start a new chapter and try, and it just set me back.
So we need to give people that were incarcerated, people that had come out of the prisons, we need to give them a chance, because especially since they went through a lot. I mean, yes, maybe you're right, they deserved it, but they also deserve a second chance as well. And that's what HINDA Institute does as well.
Yes. And do I have time to tell one story about something that could happen years later?
Yes, do we have
There was-
do we have a few more minutes? 2 more minutes. Well, we
Okay.
have 2 minutes.
Very
so-
quickly, I'm telling a story about a man 20 years ago committed a crime, out for 15 years, no crime, had to go to the hospital for a hip replacement. When he got to the rehab center, after being there a week, corporate said, "You have a record, out. You can't stay here." And he
That's
now
something.
went back to the emergency room, has to do the hip surgery over again, and has no place to go to do rehab because of and this is a rule of the corporation, this is not law. So I
Isn't
think
it-
that's
that-
not forgiving.
That is unforgiving. It really is. Somebody has to get out of a rehab center because they have a record.
Yes.